Only there. A woman has been injured after an alleged drunk driver smashed into her parked car in Marangaroo. The woman was sitting in her car outside her daughter's house when a white van crashed into it about 10 o'clock last night. She was rushed to hospital by ambulance but suffered only minor injuries. Charges are yet to be laid. The mother of an 8-month-old boy killed by a drink driver is pleading with motorists to drive safely during the festive season. The WA Police Minister says there's no excuse for drink driving and road fatalities can be avoided. Silvana Sikorsky reports.
Stacey Dunbar says it's heartbreaking to know her son's death was preventable.
It was horrific. I still have really bad days. Those split-second decisions that you have made can cost somebody else something dear to them.
8-month-old Nate Dunbar was killed in January after a drink driver with a blood alcohol level 3 times over the legal limit smashed into his nursery as he slept. Stacey says this Christmas will be exceptionally difficult, especially knowing some motorists will still drive under the influence of alcohol.
He should be with us. He should be here, and you know, especially at the age he should be actually starting to understand what it's like to open prezzies and get all excited about what Santa's brought him.
Police Minister Lisa Harvey warns there will be a heavy police presence on our roads during the festive season and says there's no excuse for drink driving.
If people say I'm not going to have anything to drink if I drive, no, we won't have people like Stacey standing here talking about pain and grief and wondering how they're going to get through Christmas without having their little boy there.
In the past 12 months, 150 people have lost their lives on WA roads. That's 17 less than this time last year. The Office of Road Safety is urging motorists to follow their online party guide, which shows hosts how to celebrate safely. Silvana Sikorsky, 10 Eyewitness News.
The world's largest floating vessel has taken to the water for the first time. It's being built by energy company Shell and once completed will be anchored off the coast of WA to help with the production of natural gas. Its mammoth hull is almost 500 metres long and more than 70 metres wide, making it longer than the Empire State Building. The move has been welcomed by a grandmother who narrowly escaped permanent injury when she was hit by a texting motorist. Chiara Zaffino reports.
Doctors have told 74-year-old Yvonne she's lucky she isn't paralysed. Her neck was fractured in a car crash last year, caused by a texting driver.
It was horrendous. It was horrendous.
Unable to move, she couldn't work. She had to stop her beloved jewellery making. The grandmother says it proves motorists on their mobiles are a serious hazard.
They are irresponsible. They do not know what damage they do to another person.
WA Police say it's an epidemic, so they'll be targeting distracted drivers this Christmas and New Year.
And I can tell you now they will show no mercy.
Officers wearing helmet cameras will ride unmarked bikes to spot offenders. When they see one,
you can activate the button on the bike. This activates the helmet, so we don't need to take our hands off the bike. We can video the offence.
Then they radio for backup.
The shadow rider will come in, they'll stop the vehicle and they'll issue the infringement.
Police will be in uniform.
We want to surprise the public and we want to take the vision and we want the public to know that we've taken the vision when we pass, so you will see that the police are wearing their shoulder flashes.
Unmarked bikes have been used elsewhere in Australia, but not like this. The trial, which is a WA first, will run over the holiday break.
Double demerits are in place from midnight tonight. The campaign ends on January 5. Chiara Zaffino, 10 Eyewitness News.
And police are already out in force tonight. Let's go live to a booze bus in Burswood. And Police Minister Lisa Harvey is there. Good evening, Minister. We have these blitzes on a regular basis. Is there a danger of complacency among motorists?
Indeed, Narelda, the police will be out in force and we're asking motorists to be vigilant. And motorists who aren't being vigilant will see the heavy hand of the law with the booze buses and an increased police presence on the roads. Now, bearing in mind, Narelda, that 156 families will be spending Christmas this year without their loved one because they've lost their lives in a road crash. So we're appealing to motorists to pay attention. Double demerits will kick in tonight, which is double demerits for seatbelts, for speeding and for excess .05 offences. So please be vigilant and look after each other.
Minister, what is your final message to drivers over their festive season?
My final message is to have a good time. You know, we want people to enjoy the festive season and have fun with friends and family, but look after each other and make sure that we're all here to enjoy another year together next year. So that's the final message. We hope people have a good time, but stay safe on our roads.
Thanks very much, Police Minister Lisa Harvey. Thanks for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Dutton reports the operation very nearly didn't go ahead.
The first of the helicopters to take us home. Thanks, everyone.
After a week stuck in the ice, finally, their ride has arrived.
If all goes well, we'll be off in about an hour's time.
The Chinese chopper touched down on a makeshift pad.
Hey!
Ice stomped to perfection by the stranded passengers and lined with Milo from the ship's kitchen. The day began with high hopes.
And we've just heard that it's 100% certain we're going to get helicoptered out when the weather clears.
But just hours later,
sea ice conditions in the area have delayed today's planned rescue of 52 passengers from the academic Shokalski.
That plan was to chopper them load by load to a Chinese vessel named the Snowdragon. From there, a barge would be used to ferry them to the Aurora Australis. But shifting ice meant that barge couldn't get through and caused problems for the Snowdragon itself.
Unfortunately, it too has become stuck in the thick sea ice that you can see all around us.
22 crew will be left on board, but the 52 passengers' journey home will be a slow one.
I can't see that the people would be in Hobart before mid-January, and with every delay that becomes a little later.
Which means that New Year's cheer may have to last a little longer. Daniel Sutton, 10 Eyewitness News.
The Abbott government is standing by its promise to create 1 million jobs, rejecting opposition claims it's a con. Shadow Treasurer Chris Bowen says the coalition's budget forecasts show it will fall 200,000 jobs short of its election promise.
I mean, if they fall more than 200,000 jobs short, that will be 200,000 broken promises. And the Australian people will have every right to be very angry and disappointed.
Finance Minister Matthias Cormann says the claim is dishonestly based on Labor's last budget, not the coalition's figures. New South Wales has introduced new rules to make it compulsory for all children attending childcare centres to be fully vaccinated. The rules will prevent parents from enrolling their kids into daycare without a full immunisation record. They've been dubbed the no jab, no play rules and are designed to tackle a resurgence in mumps and rubella. Some parts of New South Wales have vaccination rates below 50%. The National
Escapees. They smashed their way out of a prison van in Geraldton this afternoon, and tonight they're on the run. Crime reporter Grant Taylor, one of the men is a convicted rapist.
That's right, Paula, and a major police operation is now underway to get him back into custody before he has a chance to hurt anyone else. The rapist is 22-year-old Cameron John Graham, who was jailed just 2 months ago for a brutal attack on a young mum in her Perth home. Now, Graham and fellow inmate Keldon Edward Fraser allegedly kicked their way out of a prison transport van at Geraldton Airport around 1 o'clock this afternoon. They've then stolen a hire car from a Hertz employee who was cleaning it, and they've then fled out of town. Their current whereabouts are unknown. This was the police reaction after Cameron John Graham was jailed for more than a decade for a shocking rape.
It's a good stretch, and yeah, he's where he can't hurt anyone else, which is the main thing.
Now he's out and on the run. The sentencing judge described the rape as a sustained and brutal attack. The victim, a mother of 2, was home alone with her young children. She was left with no choice, the judge said, but to protect her children and submit to her attacker's gross demands. It started as a home invasion after a 3-day drug binge. Cameron John Graham threatened to kill the woman's children. She was raped repeatedly over several hours, then forced to drive her rapist to an ATM to withdraw cash. The next day, Graham posted on his Facebook page $300 and still counting, $400, $800, $1,500, and now I'm rich. Then, hours later, he posted he was going somewhere no one could find him. He fled to Queensland. The victim and her family are so traumatised, she now lives overseas. The car the men were driving is a late model silver grey coloured Toyota Kluger with the registration 1DGZ627. Now, police believe there is a possibility the pair may be heading inland away from the coast. Anyone sighting them is reminded that they are considered extremely dangerous. The number to call if you do is 131 444. That's 131 444. Paula.
Thanks, Grant. The parents of Irishman Thomas Keeney, who died after a night out in Northbridge, have thanked Perth for supporting them through their ordeal. They're now preparing to take their son's body home after donating his organs to save other lives. Rebecca O'Donovan reports.
A moving tribute celebrating the life of 23-year-old Thomas Keeney. The Irishman died after he was allegedly punched to the side of the head in Northbridge. His parents, Tom and Anne, flew from Ireland to be by his bedside and made the heartbreaking decision to turn off his life support.
And they've asked me to thank you. Everyone has been most gracious.
Thomas's T-shirt and hat were placed on the altar as 200 people lined the pews of St Joseph's Church, praying for an end to violence on Perth streets.
In a real sense, and Tom, we are your Australian family, despite the awful circumstances.
Earlier this week, his parents revealed they donated Thomas's organs to save someone else. They'll never know who, but Sharari Ahmadzadeh says she's grateful to them and everyone else who has made that choice. A heart transplant saved her life 2 years ago.
I'm ever so grateful for my donor and their family. But their one gift that they've given me has truly just changed my life.
A 22-year-old Girraween man has been charged with causing grievous bodily harm over Thomas's death. Rebecca O'Donovan, 7 News.
Police and other emergency services want one-punch attacks previously called king hits to now be known as a coward's punch. The campaign was started by the parents of a Sydney victim left in a coma on New Year's Eve and has won support from doctors here who say Perth's violent culture is costing lives.
2 weeks since the one-punch attack that left Sydney man Michael McEwen fighting for life, signs of improvement.
It's going well. It's going really well. Yeah. Each day he gets a little bit better.
This man, Daniel Christie, is also the victim of a one-punch attack in Sydney. Now in a coma, his family is behind a national move to change the name King Hit to Coward's Punch, and they've won support here in Perth too.
I think calling these coward punches is exactly what they are, and I applaud that.
Absolutely. There is nothing kingly about, hitting somebody defenceless from behind or from the side.
It's not just politicians, emergency service workers and doctors throwing their support behind the move.
Take it from me, one punch can be lethal.
Danny Green has been a long-time supporter for tougher penalties for those responsible for one-punch attacks.
I want to try and influence especially these young blokes who think it's cool to use violence as a tool to elevate their status within their own little community. And it's the opposite. It shows cowardice.
The number of people admitted to Royal Perth's emergency department after being punched or struck to the head in 2012 was 447. Last year, up until October, the number was 361. Alexis Donkin, 7 News.
There's one street in a Perth suburb where the fear of crime is making people very anxious. It's Fellgate Place in Warwick, where mother and daughter Maureen and Tamara Horseman were allegedly murdered last Sunday. Here's Amelia Brune.
5 days after the apparent random killing of two of their neighbours during a burglary, residents in Fellgate Place are nervous.
I'm locking every door, all things that you took for granted and you felt safe. It's a little bit of innocence lost.
Locals claim this is why. Maureen and Tamara Horstman's home sits directly beside a laneway, something they describe as a welcome mat.
It's an opportunity for people coming from the rail station up Beach Road. It's the first point.
I personally believe that Maureen and Tamara would be alive today if it wasn't for that laneway.
There are 23 homes here on Fellgate Place, Warwick. Long-term residents, families, mortgages. You could call it a pretty normal street, but not anymore. The peace here has been shattered, leaving many residents fearing for their own safety. John Senior is now building a security gate for his home.
I was always going to do it, but now it's spurred me on to get the job done.
Today, Tamara Horstman's twin Nicholas paid tribute to his mum and sister, describing Maureen as the greatest mother in the world and Tamara as someone who had so much yet to achieve. A 19-year-old man has been charged with 2 counts of murder. Amelia Brune, 7 News.
An Irish national has been jailed for almost 3 years for crashing an overloaded car in Bedford 6 years ago, killing his best mate and a female friend. 8 people were inside the hatchback when Eamon driver, who was tired and over the legal alcohol limit, lost control and crashed into another car. 20-year-old Colm Riley was killed instantly. His girlfriend, 22-year-old Kiara Duncan, died in hospital. Driver returned home after the 2007 crash but was extradited back to Australia last year, 6 years later, to face the charges. Perth's property market. Grant Taylor, a big man hunt is now underway. Has there been any sign of the pair?
Paula, so far no. It's been more than 5 hours now since convicted rapist Cameron John Graham and fellow inmate Keldon Edward Fraser escaped from a prison van at Geraldton Airport. The public are reminded that they're both considered extremely dangerous and they were last seen travelling in a silver grey Toyota Kluger with a registration 1DGZ 627. Anyone sighting them should call police on 131 444. Paula.
Thanks, Grant. A truck driver was run over today, apparently by his own truck. Witnesses say the semi-trailer began to roll across the street from a service station towards a playground. The truckie tried to stop the truck but ended up with serious injuries. Power poles were taken out as the truck smashed through the playground. Luckily, no children were there. A WA family is asking for help tonight and warning others after their teenage son was paralysed in a motorbike crash. Curtis Hatton wasn't wearing a helmet and has been left permanently injured, but his family hopes specialised treatment in Melbourne can help rebuild his life.
Curtis Hatton can't walk or talk. A motorbike accident 5 months ago left him with serious spinal and brain injuries. His family refused to give up on the 16-year-old.
He's in there, you know, like you can tell now that he's there.
This room at Royal Perth Hospital has been Curtis's home since the accident. It happened in Merredin. He wasn't wearing a helmet.
Wear your safety equipment and, yeah, just don't think you're invincible because you're not.
He just went for a quick ride on the way back and he hit a ditch and he kind of went over the handlebars and went over.
Because of his brain injury, Curtis isn't eligible for rehabilitation here. His parents will fly him to Melbourne next month for special hyperbaric treatment. It's not done in Perth, but has had success in Canada. This treatment isn't cheap. It can cost up to $20,000. And because it's alternative, the family isn't eligible for funding. There are details of how you can help online.
How can you put a price on your child's life?
Samantha Jolly, 7 News.
Perth twins have been awarded some of the top academic prizes in the state, one taking out the Beasley Medal. Katerina Chua, who graduated from St Hilda's Anglican School for Girls, won the medal for her performance across 5 subjects. The 17-year-old's twin brother Alexander also achieved the highest admission rank of 99.95.
I'm really proud that he did so well. It's not much fun if we both do badly or one of us does badly. It's only happy for me if we both do well.
Emma Hay from Georgiana Mollo Anglican School in Bustleton won the other Beasley Medal for the best results in vocational education and training. A lucky girl in Britain has secured a lifelong memory after snapping a selfie with Prince William.
2 men were charged with escaping lawful custody, aggravated robbery and stealing a motor vehicle. They appeared in court via video link. The matter was adjourned, but they'll reappear at the end of the month. The massive police manhunt came to an end in the early hours of yesterday morning when police tracked the men to a bush camp north of Mullewa. Their campfire gave them away. Cameron John Graham had recently been jailed for 11 years for the brutal rape of a Beelia mother in which he threatened to kill her 2 young children. The victim was so traumatised she moved her young family overseas and never set foot in her brand new home again. Her father told me today he's extremely grateful to police for recapturing the escapees, but he can't believe the men were allowed to leave their high security prison to be closer to family in Geraldton for Christmas in the first place.
My daughter is the victim of his crime, but he flew me to see her or her to see me. I mean, my grandchildren can't sit on my lap at Christmas time. They have to be somewhere else. Where's the justice in the justice system?
And I'll have more of his powerful interview in our main bulletin at 6.
A suspicious fire is burning out of control in WA's south near Denmark. Smoke from the blaze spreads.
Matt Moran joins us from Canberra. And Matt, does this mean Indonesia has given the green light to turning back the boats?
Well, we're getting very confusing messages. Indonesia's foreign minister rejects the plan, but it's reported that a top general has accepted it. And frankly, getting what actually are the facts, extremely hard at the moment. This boat, intercepted near Darwin last week, is believed to be one of the first towed back to Indonesia.
These boats will stop. These boats must stop.
Asylum seekers claim the Navy tied a rope to their vessels and towed them back to Indonesian waters. That directly contradicts Mr Abbott's promise during his first visit as PM to Jakarta just 3 months ago.
Can I just scotch this idea that the Coalition's policy is or ever has been towbacks?
A phony Tony has been caught out again.
But in an apparent coup for the Coalition, Indonesia's military chief is quoted saying he's held talks with Australia's top general David Hurley and now accepts turning boats back is justifiable.
There are enormous levels of exchange and understanding between Australia and Indonesia, as evidenced by the discussion that seems to have taken place.
The Indonesian general's comments are at odds with his foreign minister, who again rejected the policy this week.
It is time for the Abbott government to stop hiding the boats and hiding the truth.
But the Prime Minister's refusing to give in to demands his government be more open with the Australian people about asylum seekers.
I'd rather be criticised for being a bit of a closed book on this issue and actually stop the boats.
And the media faces more difficulty covering the issue after Nauru hiked visa costs for journalists from $200 to $8,000 for every visit. Now, Scott Morrison said in a statement that the decision was made without reference to the Australian government and it's a matter for Nauru.
Thanks, Matt. There have been angry scenes outside London's High Court after a jury ruled police lawfully killed an unarmed man. Mark Duggan was shot dead by officers in 2011, which sparked mass riots across the UK. Ben Lewis reports.
To Mark Duggan's family, the verdict simply didn't make sense.
No justice! No peace!
To police, it meant a potential trigger for more violence.
No officer steps out at the start of the day to run an operation that results in someone dying.
The inquest jury found the 29-year-old wasn't holding a gun when shot by police, but that the killing was lawful because he had been armed, choosing to throw his weapon away without officers realising.
We came for justice today. We don't feel that we're leaving with justice. We feel we're leaving with a grave injustice.
Mr Duggan's death sparked clashes with police in London, which quickly spread into horrific rioting across the country, the worst the UK had seen in years. More than 3,000 people were arrested and the damage bill topped $360 million. The violence after the verdict limited to a scuffle, but the Assistant Commissioner was spat at and had to be escorted to safety. The reaction inside the court was just as heated as it was outside. Some supporters of the Duggan family shouted abuse at jurors and the coroner's office door was smashed in. His relatives then marched on Tottenham Police Station, the scene of the first outbreak of violence, but stressed they want this to be a peaceful fight for justice. In London, Ben Lewis, 10 Eyewitness News.
After the break on 10 Eyewitness News.
7 News has been given shocking pictures of Perth drivers flouting mobile phone laws. More than 700 drivers were caught in the act as part of a sting operation involving police on unmarked motorbikes. Police Commissioner Carla Callaghan says it's such a big problem he wants mobiles included in double demerit campaigns. Grant Taylor reports.
What you're about to see surprised even police. A young mum with her toddler strapped in the back seat, allegedly doing 100 down the freeway while texting. The undercover officer who spotted her follows for hundreds of metres, even beeping his horn to try and get her attention before she finally realises she's been caught in the act. Police Commissioner Carlo Callaghan is so frustrated he wanted the public to see these pictures. In the past 3 weeks, his officers on unmarked motorbikes have caught more than 730 Perth motorists talking, texting, even Facebooking while driving.
It's one of the most arrogant things we can do is to get behind the wheel of a car and divert our attention to something else because we want to communicate with somebody.
Here a teenager is taking a selfie, a photo of himself and his passengers, and this driver is holding up traffic while texting, unaware he's being filmed by a police officer.
Start with this guy.
By the time he realises, it's already way too late. Carlo Callaghan believes phones in cars are so dangerous, he's working with government to have them included on double demerit campaigns, hopefully in time for Easter.
Mobile phone usage has become so serious and so frequent that we need to send a much stronger message about that.
Grant Taylor, 7 News.
Quick thinking and brave residents in Woodvale in Perth's north have caught teenage firebugs in the act. One woman called 000, others restrained the boys until police arrived. Amelia Brune reports.
3 boys, all 17, moments after being caught lighting a fire. Luckily, the fire didn't take hold of the dry bushland off Timberlane Drive in Woodvale. Firefighters and police were quickly on the scene, thanks to Hayley Wilding. She was first to spot the teenagers and the fire about 7:30 last night.
For some reason, it didn't look quite right to me.
Hayley called 000.
Oh, it just breaks your heart. You think, what are you doing? You know, like, don't you realise the damage you're going to cause, you know, and the lives you're going to ruin?
A woman jogging along this path then confronted the boys, who began throwing sand on the fire. Other people in the area then helped restrain the teenagers until police arrived.
You're going to get caught, you know. We don't want this happening to our neighbourhood, so, you know, don't do it. You know, don't do it.
The teenagers won't face court. They've been cautioned. WA police say that's because under the Young Offenders Act, juveniles are only sent to court as a last resort.
Amelia Brune is in Woodvale where it all happened, and Amelia, this is a great example of neighbourhood watch.
It sure is, Rick. Good evening. As you can see, this bush behind me is tinder dry. A fire here last night could have been devastating. Last night's events with the 3 boys being caught shows what can happen when the public is alert and makes a quick phone call to police when they see anything that just doesn't seem quite right. This park is just across the road from dozens of homes, so that phone call has potentially prevented a situation that could have been so much worse. Sue.
Thanks, Amelia. There's a measles alert out tonight if you've been to the Garden City Cinema Complex recently. Jeff Parry, this health message is for people who were at the cinema on January the 8th.
So the cinema and all of the Garden City Complex. Health Department tells us that a cinema patron returned from a holiday in Indonesia and later went to a movie around about midday on Wednesday, January the 8th. They then later took themselves off to a GP and the measles diagnosis was made. The person's movements were tracked and gave cause for an alert for all of the shopping centre. Measles is highly contagious and spread through coughing and sneezing. Symptoms include fever, tiredness, runny nose and sore eyes, which usually lasts for several days before developing a red rash. Here's the important bit. If you've been exposed, you will start to notice those or start exhibiting those symptoms from about now till January the 26th. People born before 1966 are usually immune because they've had the disease in childhood. People who are up to the age of 48 who haven't had 2 doses of the vaccine are particularly at risk. Rick.
Thanks, Jeff. A heatwave has...
He smashed into a young mother at high speed.
The force of the impact was catastrophic. The victim's car ripped in 2. Inside, 21-year-old Kayla Michelle Spiteri stood little chance and died at the scene. The mother was trying to turn from Tonkin Highway into Gosnells Road West when she was hit. In the other car, P-plate driver Quade Carson Jones had been drinking and also had cannabis and methamphetamine in his system. He was also badly injured but fled the scene. Police later found him at Armidale Hospital. The 21-year-old admitted exceeding the 100 km/h speed limit. His car also badly damaged. Jones pleaded guilty to failing to stop and failing to report the incident. Despite suffering a broken foot and collarbone and a deep cut to his knee, Jones managed to walk more than 2 kilometres from the crash, and prosecutors said that showed how determined he was to flee the scene. Judge Andrew Stavrianou said Jones showed a callous and selfish disregard for the welfare of Ms Spiteri, but accepted he was remorseful, sentencing him to 10 months behind bars.
He's been very emotional. He's very sorry for what happened.
Jones was originally charged with dangerous driving causing death, but that was later dropped. A crash expert formed the opinion that a reasonable and sober driver would not have been able to avoid the collision. Has he been able to say why he didn't stop and help?
I think he just got panicked.
Jamie Freestone, 10 Eyewitness News.
Controversial broadcaster Darren Hinch is in custody tonight. He was arrested at his Melbourne apartment this afternoon after refusing to pay the $100,000 fine recently imposed for contempt of court.
Do you regret it at all?
No, not at all. No. Hey, I was nearly dead 3 years ago. They can't hurt me.
It's not Hinch's first stint behind bars. In 2012, he spent 5 months in home detention and in 1987, 12 days in jail for naming a pedophile.
Good evening. A manhunt continues tonight for a prisoner who escaped while under guard at Joondalup Hospital yesterday. Bradley John McIntosh Narrier was being treated for an injury to his hand, but broke out through the roof of a toilet cubicle. Today, the Corrective Services Minister defended the guard's actions.
This is the toilet block Bradley John McIntosh Narrier escaped from, and this is the damage he left behind. The 27-year-old fled through the cubicle roof yesterday afternoon after ripping a handrail off the wall and threatening 2 guards. His legs were shackled, but he wasn't wearing handcuffs, which is current protocol.
You learn from these mistakes. Obviously, from now on, there will be different restraints in place.
During the rampage, the 2 Serco guards supervising the prisoner locked the cubicle door.
The only other option for the guards would have been to let this guy loose in the middle of a public hospital, and that could have been disastrous.
McIntosh Narrier then carjacked 2 women in a RAV4. Last night, an immediate order was made for more restraints to be used on prisoners under escort.
We need to get to the bottom of this, learn from it, so that we can improve the safety of what we do.
2 weeks ago, convicted rapist Cameron John Graham, along with alleged armed robber Keldon Edward Fraser, escaped from a prison van at Geraldton Airport. Joe Francis says despite another escape, he still has confidence in Serco, which currently runs WA's court security and custodial services.
This is a disaster of Mr Barnett's own making. They are so close to Serco, you can't see daylight between them.
Amelia Brune joins us live from police headquarters with the latest on the search for Bradley John McIntosh Narrier. Amelia, has there been any sign of him?
No, there hasn't, Blake. He's been missing now for just over 28 hours, but police say there have been no sightings. This morning there was a small breakthrough. That RAV4 that he stole from the 2 women at the car park of the Joondalup Hospital was found abandoned on Campion Avenue in Balcatta. McIntosh Narrier is facing charges including burglary and aggravated burglary. So police warn that if you see him, do not approach him. He could be unpredictable. Instead, call police immediately. The number 131 444. Blake.
Amelia, thank you. As we go to air tonight, fires are still burning out of control across 2 states. 12 homes have been destroyed in South Australia. In Victoria, the threat from the worst fires since Black Saturday has passed, with the loss of 4 homes and thousands of livestock.
Victorian fire surrounded by flames at Grampians National Park last night. This footage was recorded from inside their trucks.
Proceed with extreme caution. Repeat, extreme caution.
The fire threatening these properties just after dark.
40-foot flames just would have come out of the timber.
It may take days to bring the fire under control, but it's no longer threatening townships. The toll so far, at least 5 properties, more than 7,000 livestock, and the life of 1 woman who was found dead at Rose's Gap. In South Australia, crews battle to save a family farm in the Barossa Valley. A father and his sons tackle flames on their paddocks. Already, 12 homes have been lost in that state.
There's 5 acres of feed left. The cattle are in the yards. They're protected.
5 properties were lost in Bangor in the southern Flinders Ranges.
I haven't even got photos or anything. Nothing.
While the worst has hopefully passed, authorities are urging residents to stay alert. Rebecca O'Donovan, 7 News.
17 WA firefighters have been sent to South Australia to battle the bushfire there. Back home, vandals have ransacked emergency services headquarters in Perth's southeast. They cut through a fence, set cars on fire and stole emergency equipment.
This footage captured by cameras inside the Gosnells Pound last night. 2 men break in, taking a motorbike. Less than 4 hours later, 3 o'clock this morning, 2 cars were set on fire at the Emergency Operations Centre next door. Police are investigating whether the 2 incidents are linked.
It's still a bit of a shock at the moment. Everyone's still worried, and we've got members that have been here for 35 years that were involved in building this unit.
The volunteers' offices ransacked. They're missing a laptop, TV and beers from the fridge. Fire trucks inside their shed were broken into.
With the fires or any other emergencies, it's going to have an impact.
With these heatwave conditions, you just can't understand people's logic.
While the property is surrounded by electric fencing, they somehow managed to cut their way through. While it's patched up now, you can see this is one of their points of entry. The burnt cars had been impounded by the council and stored on the property. Damage to them and the offices is expected to cost more than $60,000.
This puts at risk the lives of people when there is a major inferno up in those hills.
If you recognise these men, police want to hear from you. Rebecca O'Donovan, 7 News.
There's mounting pressure on the state government to commit to maintaining private power poles after the hills blaze that destroyed 56 homes. The Premier has ruled out taxpayers being asked to foot the bill.
One power pole responsible for all of this devastation. The opposition today demanding the government take control for poles on private property and charge landowners a levy.
What they did in Victoria was they put in place an inspection regime for private power poles with the capacity to issue orders to make sure that those power poles would be repaired if they were dangerous.
There are around 180,000 power poles on private property across WA. The cost of inspecting each and every one of those would run into the millions of dollars. The question now is who should pay?
It is the responsibility of the private property owner, and I don't believe the taxpayer should have to pay for that.
In the meantime, the government says property owners should have power poles checked by a professional, warning if this happens again, homeowners will face prosecution.
Let's take advantage of this tragedy and inform people that you have to inspect your electrical gear as well as vegetation around the house.
Chantel Toohey, 7 News.
A 26-year-old man has died while exploring bushland on a mining lease in the Pilbara. The man was walking with a colleague on Wednesday when he became unwell and collapsed on a site near Newman. The man's colleague went for help but became disoriented and had to be rescued himself. The victim's body was found a day later by a search party. Indonesia has issued a stern warning to Australia to abandon its border protection operations in response to the Navy's breach of its territorial waters. Jakarta is also strengthening its warship patrols as the high seas standoff escalates.
Foreign Minister Julie Bishop wasn't going to let an alarm ruin her day.
Doesn't it eventually shut up? Oh. Yes.
And her message was loud and clear to Indonesian counterpart Marty Natalegawa. Australian naval and customs boats will never again stray into Indonesian waters in a bid to stop asylum seekers coming to our shores.
These were inadvertent breaches. We've apologised and it won't happen again.
Formal apologies have been issued to the highest level of the Indonesian government, but there has been no acknowledgement of that. Instead, Jakarta is taking the violation very seriously by sending its own warships to monitor its side of the sea.
Indonesia, for its part, will intensify its maritime patrol on areas where violation of its sovereignty and territorial integrity are at risk.
Julie Bishop doesn't seem concerned as tension escalates between the two countries.
We welcome cooperation from Indonesia in patrolling the waters where these people smuggling boats are being launched.
The boats might be launched there, but Indonesia still doesn't want them pushed back there. Its government last night demanding the Abbott government suspend its turn back the boats policy.
This government just doesn't understand the importance of our relationship with Indonesia.
Mia Greaves, 7 News.
The Queen's granddaughter, Zara Phillips, has given birth to a baby girl. The child becomes the 16th in line to the throne. In other royal news, Prince Harry is ending his time as an army helicopter pilot to take on more of an administrative role.
A brief moment away from grandma duties, Princess Anne stepped out for some fresh air at her daughter's estate. The new mum and bub are already home from hospital. Proud father and rugby player Mike Tindall thanked the public for their support on Twitter. Definitely the best day of my life today. So happy. The girls are both doing great.
Delighted for the couple. I know them a little and I know they'll be absolutely devoted and delighted parents.
The baby, who's yet to be named, is now 16th in line to the throne, but she's expected to lead a very different life to her second cousin, Prince George.
She is not a princess. She has no royal title whatsoever because Zara doesn't have a title.
Friends of the Olympic equestrian say motherhood won't keep her off the horse for long.
She probably will have the baby with her to begin with, and she'll have somebody there to help her. And Mike, I'm sure, will be very much hands-on as well.
Meantime, cousin Prince Harry has followed his older brother William, announcing a career change for 2014. After 3 years as a dedicated army helicopter pilot, he'll be out of the cockpit and back on the ground organising military events. Jessica Dietrich, 7 News.
Stay with us on 7 News. Still to come, jail for an American model who ran down and killed a former rugby league star. And in the mix, the Premier gets up close with a kitchen gadget that's causing a stir.